So, and I'll also share my screen. That's kind of important, right? All right. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at Lab 10 about data integration. And data integration is just being able to pull information from some other source, pull that in, and develop a good solid visualization on that particular subject. So in our lab, we were asked to go over into finance.yahoo.com and get some historical data from at least 3 different companies across 3 different sectors. So what that means is we have the different sectors here: energy, materials, industrial, so on and so forth, all the way down. You're going to need to label each sector, so be sure that before you know, or before you're moving forward, you understand what sector your data is in. So for instance, here are some companies in the energy sector. There's Exxon, Chevron, BP, so on and so forth. Materials are, DuPont, Ecolabs, Industrials, 3M, so on and so forth. All right. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and open up an Excel sheet, right? Just open up a blank worksheet, and you're going to copy that over, and we will pick any one of these, right? So let's pick, for instance, consumer staples, right? So we'll take a look at Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and Kraft. So we're going to take this particular spreadsheet, and we're going to pull each one of those pieces down by going to finance.yahoo.com. All right. Oh, finance.yahoo. Click the wrong piece there. All right. So then you don't even have to know the ticker symbol pieces. We're just going to put in Coke, right? Turns out that Coke is Coca-Cola Consolidated. That's not the one we want. So make sure, for instance, that it's on the New York Stock Exchange, and KO happens to be the ticker symbol for the Coca-Cola Company. Okay. Now, we're going to come down to the area here where it says historical data. We click historical data, and then we want to pick a time frame, a time period. Now I ask you to go back and look from 2009 to today's date so that you have 10 years worth of data at least. So we're going to come back to the time period, pull that down. The start date here is going to be 1/1/2009 to today's date, and click done. All right, click apply, and you can see now that the date has changed. You scroll all the way to the bottom, and it goes all the way down to 2009. All right. Now that's quite a bit of data, so rather than daily, right, let's come here and we'll go weekly. We click apply, and we download the data. Now the data is going to be set as a comma separated value. So Monica asked the question, what is the date? And the date is, we will go from December 31st, or 1/1/2009 to today's date. Okay, so January 1st, 2009 to today's date. And we will save that as a comma separated value. Okay. So when we pull that up, we now have a spreadsheet that looks like this. The number that you want is the adjusted close number. So we're going to grab the date first, click where it says date in A1 and then do Command Shift or Control Shift down arrow to select that entire column. Copy it, paste it. Okay. Then we're going to get the adjusted close. The adjusted close adjusts for stock splits, adjusts for any sort of dividends that are paid. It adjusts for everything that has happened in the last 11 years. And then we change that to either say Coke or KO, right? KO for Coke. All right. So now that we have this spreadsheet, we no longer need this one. And we come back and we do it again with a different company, right? So another consumer staple is Procter & Gamble, right? PG. Okay, good to see at least one company's in the green these days, right? So we go to historical data, time period, and again for the time period here, we're just going to put in 01, 2009 to today's date. Click done, click apply, download the data. All right, and I always save mine on the desktop. It's easier to get rid of that way. Okay. And so here's the data that we just pulled. And now because we already have the date, we just need the adjusted close. Change the adjusted close to PG for Procter & Gamble. And let's grab one more. Okay. And so we'll come over and we'll look at Unilever, right? Okay, UN for the Unilever group. Again, historical data. January 1, 2009. Apply. Download the data. Okay. And again, we grab the adjusted close. Okay. And we put in UN for Unilever. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to save this. So now I have from January 1st, 2009, all the way to today's date, and I have each one of the stocks in kind, right? To make this a little bit easier to read, I'm going to select each single one of them, change it to a $sign, and then across the top, I will go ahead and make these bold so it's a little bit easier for me to see. Okay. So now we have Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Unilever. These are what's called consumer staples because they are things that you're going to buy no matter what your economic situation. You have to have soap, right? You have to have food. So these are things that you're going to buy no matter what the economic situation. They're consumer staples. All right. So I'm going to file, save as, and I'm going to send this to our Chime so everybody has it, right? And so we'll call them. So for those of you who are lagging a bit, I sent this the completed file to you so that you can still follow along. All right. So now that I have that on my desktop and I have these three together, I could simply come into Excel and I could insert a line chart and I could see where the growth of each of these is going, right? So it doesn't take much to be able to see how each of these pieces works together. I'm going to come and make the font size a little bigger on this so you can see it. But blue is Coca-Cola, orange Procter and Gamble, and then gray is Unilever. Now, Coca-Cola was doing quite well, was on an uphill slide, and now it seems that things have taken a turn for the worse. So since the beginning of the month, you can see that Coca-Cola has gone down quite precipitously. However, Procter and Gamble and Unilever have actually held steady. Now, part of the reason for that is because people still need other things, like the big run on toilet paper. Procter and Gamble and Unilever make those. Okay. In addition to that, they both got government contracts to make those N95 masks that everyone needs. In Excel, if we were to take any one of these, let's take the Unilever. We could simply right-click and add a trend line, and then we could forecast forward, say 5 periods. So 5 months into the future, and it would tell us where our expected value should be as we move forward. Let me try that one more time. Yeah, so it is forecasted forward, right? We could go 10, or if we went 12, that would actually be 12 weeks into the future, right? Now, the thing is that this doesn't give us a lot of data here. It does tell us that it's held pretty steady. This is what's called a stochastic variable. There's not much change in it, right? So it's moving forward fairly steadily and developing a good solid clip. Unilever is the kind of company that you put your money into because you get dividends. So this is what grandma and grandpa might be buying because they're not as interested in the growth. They're interested in the dividend so that it pays them back cash. Okay. So now that we have that, right, you will notice, by the way, at the bottom of the list that there's some extraneous data there. Okay. So I'm going to take all of that. If you got that in your list, just delete that because we only need it up to today. And I don't know where the extra came from. I probably clicked Control V twice or something. Okay. So if you have that data that's at the bottom, just go ahead and delete that and then save your file. Now we're going to open up Tableau, right? And we're going to pull that information in and we're going to forecast it. So while I'm waiting for Tableau to open, do we have any questions? Okay. Monica, did you get the file? Okay. Okay. All right. So once Tableau is open, we come connect to a file, click Microsoft Excel, and open up the one we just saved on consumer staples. Okay. You'll notice here that you have Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Unilever with the date, right? And scroll to the bottom and check that data out. Make sure that it stops at 4/3/2020. If not, then go back to your Excel file and cut it off at 4/3/2020. That was the last day that, or last Monday that it opened, okay? All right, now, in this regard, notice that we don't have to use the data interpreter. That's because it already understands that this is a date and each of these are dollar values. But we do want to click extract at the top, okay? This will create a new worksheet and we're going to name this sheet Consumer Staples. So we're going to take out the part where it says sheet 1, okay? And then click go to worksheet. Because you did the extract, it's going to want to save this as a new file. Go ahead and do that. And here we go. So we're going to rename our sheet at the bottom. And that way it pops up here as well. Okay. All right. So then we take the date, double click to drag that in, and notice now that we have this nice chart across the top, and we take them one at a time. Okay. And we'll pull Coca-Cola here. All right. Now, before we add any of the other ones in, let me take this out, by the way, so everything's good, right? Okay. What we do not want to do is have the sum. So we actually want to take the measure and we want to have the average, okay? So the average now shows that Coca-Cola is doing quite well. If you leave it as the sum, that's fine too. We don't have a problem with that, okay? Now, this is for the year. This is what the stock price was for each year, but we know that our data are not in years. The data are in weeks. So we're going to pull this down and we're going to come to either week number or the day. Okay, now the day obviously doesn't look like you want it to. So pull it down, excuse me, pull down the blue pill and come down to the week number. Okay, okay, now that's not supposed to do that. Let's go back and look at quarters. There. Now we can make sense of it. Okay, so pull the pill down, the year pill, pull that down and make it quarters. All right. Okay. Now we can come to analytics and simply drag in forecast. All right. So we come here is what we're at, the data. Come to analytics. Come to the forecast and drag that in. All right. And you have your forecast pulled across here. So you have an estimate of where quarter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth will be sometime next year. Okay. If we right click, forecast, forecast options, now we can pull up anything else we want to know. Let's leave the forecast model as automatic, so it uses the Holt-Winter model for that, right? And we're going to aggregate by quarters, and we're going to ignore the last quarter. But our forecast length, we're going to change this. Right now, it's forward, or excuse me, right now it was the next 7 quarters, right? And I think if I'm not mistaken, I told you to forecast forward for at least 4 quarters, right, or 4 periods. So let's come back over here and make it that, right? And so instead of years, we're going to use quarters, and we'll make it 4 quarters. Okay? So let me slow down and ask, do you have any questions at this point? Okay? Do you need me to go back over something? Okay. So it seems like everybody's on the up and up with that, right? Now, when we hover over our tooltips, we can see that it tells me the quarter and the price, which we already knew. What I want to know for this particular plot, I want to know what is, if this is my forecast indicator, I'm going to need to know some other information about this. So for Coca-Cola, I'm going to pull that to the tooltip, and I'm going to do it one more time so that I have other tooltips involved here, okay? So what I want, I have my actual and my forecast. That's good, right? But for this particular tooltip, I want the quality. right? So now notice that I've lost these because I'm interested in just the forecast quality. Not a very good forecast at all, 9.95. Now this one should be the tooltip, right? So when I hover over it, that's what I have. I can pull that back in if I want and make it back on the label to put my labels back in there. So if you did what I did and you accidentally took the tooltip out, excuse me, you took the labels out and made it a tooltip, all you have to do is drag Coca-Cola back to the labels and it will put them back in there. All right. So my forecast quality here is not very good. All right. So I want to open the floor to ask you on if the forecast quality on a scale of 1 to 100 is only a 10 based on historical data, why do you think that the forecast quality is so low given the situation that we find ourselves in? So what do y'all think? Why is the forecast quality so low? Okay, so nobody wants to answer, right? Part of the reason why is because even though we have historical data, we're also unprecedented in the times that we're living in, so people don't really know, right? In addition, we don't have a lot of the other factors built into this. All we have is historical data, okay? So we've got our quality. The next thing I want to do, I'm going to pull another one to the tooltips here, okay? Change this, and I'll put those labels back in there. I want to get my precision, okay, percentage. And then I will put Coca-Cola back on the labels, make this a tooltip, make this a, yeah, so here we go. So now when I hover over it, the estimate is there, my precision, as in plus or minus 6.3% is there, and then the quality as well as the actual forecast, okay? Now to clean it up just a bit, I'm going to drag this up on top so that we have our labels, we have each of them, and then we have our forecast indicator. Okay. Now you can do the same thing if you drag Procter and Gamble here. Okay. You have two different ones. And the beautiful thing is because you've already set it up for Coca-Cola, when you drag Procter and Gamble in, you have the same numbers already there. So all of the labels and everything are already there. And then we drag Unilever up to do the same thing. So my suggestion to you is to take and do Coca-Cola first, and then Procter and Gamble and Unilever if those are the ones you choose. So take your first company, put it in, get it right, and then you just drag and drop the other ones in. Okay. And if you want, you can change the color, right? You can come down and you can take a look at how each one of the pieces fit, but you don't have to do that. You can leave them whatever the default color is. All right. Okay. So here's where you would, change your colors, right? So on and so forth. You don't have to do all of that. Okay. So that's how you would pull each one of them together. And you've now integrated the data from finance.yahoo.com and put that in, okay? There are other ways to do that, like pulling data from an actual server and pulling that in so when the data changes, your dashboard changes, but we'll get to that down the road, okay? All right, so now I'm going to stop recording and I will give some time at the end of the class for anybody who needs to do this. All right.